You're watching the Aramco 2022 F1 car reveal series. The Williams 2022 launch was initially a disappointment, with a 2022 show car used for its online presentation and images. But at Silverstone, the real Williams FW44 was being prepped to run ahead of hitting the track for the first time. What was representative about the car at the launch itself was the livery. In fact, that's the reason the show car was used for the launch, given the marketing imperative to ensure it was shown off perfectly. This livery is now predominantly dark blue, with lighter blue and red detailing that reflects the corporate colours the team adopted last year. There's also a hint of the diamond shapes that Williams is very keen on. Missing from the livery is the familiar Senna S, which has been on the car in tribute to the legendary Ayrton Senna since 1995. But Williams retains links with the Senna Foundation and has a Senna exhibit in its refurbished museum, while CEO Jost Capito says it will support the Senna Foundation more, but in ways that are yet to be defined. The car itself notched up the maximum allowed 100 km of shakedown running on a promotional day at Silverstone, with both Nicholas Latifi and Alex Albon getting behind the wheel. That was despite electrical problems that meant a delayed start. While Williams does appear to have been up against it to hit its target of running today, the fact it has got its car on track as planned proves it will be ready for the start of pre-season testing. So with the help of technical expert Gary Anderson and the sharp eye of illustrator Rosario Juliana, let's take a closer look at the Williams FW44 based on the two images released so far. One of the most significant changes for Williams in 2022 represents a philosophical shift. It has long resisted aligning itself technically with a partner team and had been determined to stand on its own 2 feet. But that changes this year as it uses the Mercedes gearbox and hydraulics in addition to its power unit supply. However, Williams has designed its own rear suspension and has not followed Aston Martin in taking the Mercedes components. Given the power unit and gearbox have been designed to work together, it was a pragmatic decision. While the Williams gearbox department still exists for possible future projects, the staff were available to be seconded to other departments during the design and build of the 2022 car. But let's turn our attention to the more visible aspects of the car. At the front, the nose is relatively straightforward, but in common with most of the designs we've seen so far, the bottom plane is not attached directly to the nose. This allows space for the airflow to pass through and ensures some clean airflow to the front of the floor. As Gary Anderson points out, Williams appears to be loading the inboard end of the front wing more than the other 2022 cars we've seen. This comes as a surprise given the importance of the airflow off the trailing edge of this part in feeding the underfloor. It's also noticeable that Williams appeared to be running with the highest available wing angle in the adjustable flap for its wet running at Silverstone. The front suspension is a conventional double wishbone design actuated by a pushrod, in common with all of the 2022 cars so far, save for McLaren. The track rod and forward leg of the upper wishbone are in line or perhaps even integrated into one shroud to make them work as one aero-wise to better control the airflow coming off the front wing flaps. At the front of the side pods, Williams has what appears to be the biggest inlets we've seen. The upper impact structure, a tube that protrudes from the side of the chassis, is very clear. There's another one lower down which is integrated with the floor surface, though it appears that there is a blister in that to accommodate it. The side pods themselves abruptly sweep inwards and downwards, so they house the radiators but then are eliminated as quickly as possible with a downwash effect created off the top surface to feed airflow to the rear of the car. At the rear, what remains of the side pods also ends abruptly, with the gearbox casing effectively being the inner Coke bottle surface. It's a very narrow, compact design and one aiming to maximise the airflow across the top of the diffuser. The rear suspension is a pull rod design. The lower wishbone is located at the rear wheel centreline so it shrouds the drive shaft. This is to help minimise the airflow blockage in this area. The fact the car successfully ran at Silverstone is encouraging, although Nicholas Latifi, who completed the initial laps, was understandably not leaping to any conclusions. But he will be hoping that the new Williams FW44 is capable at least of picking up the points finishes the team achieved in 2021, and ideally, more than that as it becomes a stronger force in F1's midfield. You're watching the Aramco 2022 F1 car reveal series. New York-based investment company Doralton Capital bought Williams in August 2020, and much has changed since then. It cleared the team's debts and invested in the infrastructure, updating equipment and facilities, as well as increasing the operating budget. There have also been changes to the senior personnel. With the Williams family no longer involved, former Volkswagen Motorsport boss Jost Capito joined as CEO in February 2021. He brought in Francois-Xavier de Maison, better known as FX, as technical director, having worked with him on the VW Rally project. Another VW alumnus, Sven Smit, has also come on board as racing director. They have reshuffled the team technically, attempting to build better links between the race team and the technical team at base. As part of these changes, design director Doug McKiernan left during 2021, while engineering director Adam Carter left over the winter. There have also been wider changes. Williams is the first team to set the objective of becoming climate positive by 2030, an example of the ways it's evolving from a more old-school F1 team into a forward-looking technology company. There are also plans down the line for new factory buildings at its Grove headquarters. But the key is that Williams has gone from a team that was struggling financially and that existed in an increasingly hand-to-mouth way into one that now appears to have genuine long-term stability. Although the team leapt up the order when the 2014 regulation changes kicked in, finishing third in the Constructors' Championship with the second fastest car on average, this proved unsustainable. The primary reason was that the commercial agreements that were signed in 2013 and gave the biggest teams a disproportionate amount of the revenue shared between the teams meant it simply didn't have the resources to build on that strong start. With no benefactor with bottomless pockets, Williams struggled to invest, and when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, it was out of credit and at the back of the grid, forcing the sale. Now, as well as new ownership, there's a new Concord agreement and a cost cap era F1, promising a bright future for Williams, which can finally now fight on a more level economic playing field. Williams last won a World Championship way back in 1997 when Jacques Villeneuve was its spearhead. Since then, there have been cycles of temporary revival, but overall the story has been of decline. While hopes are high for the team, the opportunity presented by the dramatic regulation changes for 2022 has come too early. F1 teams today are large organisations, and it takes more than the 18 months Doralton Capital has had to build up a struggling team into a potentially front-running one. Williams CEO Jost Capito talks about the 5 and 10-year outlook, with the next major rule changes set to be around the new power unit regulations in 2026, the more realistic timeline for a big step forward. And with Williams also being linked with a possible partnership with Porsche should it come into F1, much more might have changed for the team by then. This means that expectations for 2022 must be tempered. What Williams needs to see is an improvement, but it's not expecting to be suddenly back at the front. According to Capito, one of the key measures will be its development rate during the season, regardless of where it starts off in the competitive order. Williams has made progress since its nadir of 2019, which was its worst campaign since becoming a constructor back in 1978. It went from backmarker then to at least being in the midfield in 2020, then scoring points and occasionally reaching Q3 last year. The signs are there of the Williams recovery, one that could be far more sustainable than the many false dawns of the past. But Williams fans are going to have to be patient.